put their wisdom into practice as you build your company's success.
All right. Welcome to the Superpro Podcast, the heartbeat of home service excellence. I am Roland Ligtenberg, your host and co-founder of Housecall Pro, and I'm an advocate for all the hardworking pros out there that help make our homes better, safer, and more comfortable. At Housecall Pro, I've had the honor of supporting hundreds of thousands of pros just like you. We're here to help you reach new heights, reduce your stress, and redefine what success means in our industry. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and equipped with the tools you need to thrive. Today, I am super excited. We've got Sammy Suggs to the show. Sammy is a business manager of North Myrtle Beach Heating and Air, a third generation family-owned business. We're going to talk all about that transition from, pen and paper way back when, all the way to modern technology. Right now, they've got 10 employees with 6 trucks on the road, the goal to close out the year at about 2.5 million. Join us as we dive into Sammy's journey, the challenges she's overcome, and she's got a ton of insights for us. And I'm super excited to welcome her to the show. Hey, Sammy, how are you doing?
Hey, Roland, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm super curious. So, third generation. Talk to me about the story. Tell me the inception story. How did that come to be?
Well, my husband's grandfather, Cecil, who's the first generation of Cool, he started the business back in 1976, operated pretty much by himself for the first little bit out of his house in Little River, which is a small town where we live about 15 minutes up the road from where we're located now in North Myrtle Beach. Then my father-in-law got involved and was helping him along with some other employees in between his time as a full-time city fire lieutenant, which he has since retired. Then my husband came into the picture in 1993, and he's been pretty much helping out ever since he was old enough to start walking and carrying tools. And that's where we're at today. So 24 years old, ended up with his dad buying out the grandfather when he was ready to retire. And, it's been quite the evolution and ups and downs ever since.
So you're really behind the scenes, managing the entire business side of things. So how's that like, running the business, making sure everything's running smoothly operation wise? Like, how did you come into the picture, jumping into the trades?
Well, when my husband and my father-in-law ended up buying the business out, my mother-in-law actually was managing the business side of things for them. And she actually has a full-time job herself managing some businesses for another couple who are local. It just kind of became a little bit too much for everybody to kind of manage between Nate trying to be present in the field, trying to field the phone calls, trying to do the scheduling, the invoicing and whatnot. At the time I was out of college, just working at a restaurant, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And that's when they had the idea to bring me in. And my mother-in-law pretty much turned everything over to me and taught me everything that she knows. She's still in the same office with me every day, showing me anything that, I could be doing better as far as an administrative side of things. And that's really about it. So
just kind of came into the trades and just learning it as you go.
Exactly. Kind of like a right place, right time thing. It all just kind of panned out the way it should be. And June, I believe, was 8 years going on with them, which would have been about 6 months after my husband had acquired the business. So.
Wow. Yeah. And so what's it like kind of, coming in with not a lot of experience, especially like the heating and cooling, and being a female and then just getting dropped right in there, kind of just like in the most critical part of the business. Tell me about that a little bit.
Well, let me say this. My husband's an incredible man, and it takes a very special person to want to choose to do life with me. So he knew from day one I was never going to take crap from anybody and, chose to stay with me all these years. So also being very theatrical myself, I just kind of fake it till I make it is my motto. But of course, I'm an honest person, as is he. So if there's ever something that I didn't know about, I've never pretended like I've tried to know about it. It's just always better to say, I don't know the answer to that question, but let me get with somebody who does, and, I'll get back to you. And through that, I've acquired, some knowledge without being in the field, obviously. So it's still limited, but I've been able to, acquire enough as the years have gone on, and in turn kind of train my office assistant who's with us now to do the same, which has been really helpful for the guys in the field, especially when it comes to dispatching things and making their jobs a little easier when they show up.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are really kind of like the first line of defense, when calls are kind of coming in. So you need to be able to troubleshoot maybe like a little bit to make sure you're sending them out on the right types of calls, so they're not kind of going out there unprepared.
Yes, absolutely. And something else that, I've learned over the years is sometimes less is more. Yeah, I take that back earlier, saying that I don't pretend to know things sometimes. Actually, so now these days, I'm sure a big joke in the HVAC business is somebody calls and they're like, I think I just need Freon. Before I would be like, oh, well, it could be this, could be that. Less is more. You just say, okay, well, let me send somebody out, and I just toss it over to the guys and I kind of let them make the diagnosis from there, save everybody a little time and headache.
Sure. Yeah, no. And I think obviously, as you're even starting a business, sometimes you might feel like you're forced to know the answers right on the spot, or the homeowner is kind of putting you on the spot. But, the tips kind of that you're giving is like, just get the technician out there to actually really go understand it, because you can't reasonably try to really troubleshoot stuff like that over the phone. And you might be setting wrong expectations with the homeowner too, which might make it more difficult for the tech once they even head out.
Right, absolutely. And I will say that I had coming into this with them was, while we are a big town, we're also a very small town. And I've got a lot of connections in the community through the restaurant industry. I was in the insurance industry. I was even in the porta-john industry for about a year, believe it or not. So a lot of our clients, we have connections through them, through friends and family and stuff like that. So they were a huge part of me kind of learning and starting to be familiarized with this business, just because I know them and they were patient with me and understanding, which I think everybody could do these days.
Yeah. And I think what you're touching on here, which is just like another great golden nugget, which is just like being involved in your local community and kind of networking. And even if you're coming from a different background into the trades too, pulling in and leveraging kind of those connections. What are some things that you guys do in the local community to kind of get your name out there, to kind of support folks? Like, what kind of advice would you give like a younger company that's just kind of maybe getting started out and doesn't have, 3 generations worth of kind of, being in the community behind them?
That's a good question. Take it one day at a time. Let me just say that. You can spend your whole life, or you can spend every day trying to control every situation and worrying about how things are going to pan out. But what I've learned over the years is, truthfully, all you're in control of is that very moment right then and there. So just take each call one call at a time and go from there. In the height of the busy season, sometimes it gets really overwhelming to do that. There's usually only one of us in the office at all times, and you hang up the phone, you haven't even hit dispatch on the job, and then, the next call's coming in. Sometimes it's okay to let it go to voicemail. Get your head back together, make sure you've got all your information accurate, then pick up the phone and call that person back. People are willing to wait, and, it's better to just slow down and focus on one thing at a time versus trying to rush to keep up with the tempo.
Yeah, I think that's really, especially right now, because it is busy season, and for a lot of folks, they might be inundated with calls. But, if you've got a bunch of jobs that are like half created with like half the notes, it's going to make it much harder down the road to like, deliver the 5-star experience that you're looking to perform. So slow down a little bit. I love that advice, and take it one call at a time is really good, even if you've got a big business,
Absolutely, because everybody's so different.
Yeah, that's right. Tell me a little bit about, you guys are in kind of a vacation town area. So you've got a whole bunch of rental properties that are kind of out there. What are some things that you've learned that maybe might help some other folks that are either in other vacation kind of rental areas, or maybe not even? Like, what are some kind of tips and tricks when it comes to dealing with the landlords and, rental clients, and kind of managing? It's almost like, an extra 2 nodes.
There may not be some people that agree with this answer, but this is the answer that we have come up with. And when you get into rental properties, it's very sticky so we have a lot of clients that are essentially in our system twice. Their address is under the system under them, and then it's under the system under the rental property. We kind of had to come to the realization that it's not our job to do the rental company's job. It is our job to take care of the HVAC. So our rule of thumb is if the rental property calls, that's who we dispatch under. That's who we run repairs past. That's who we bill through. If the homeowner calls, vice versa. With that being said, we had to put some boundaries in place because it was getting so excessive and it was asking and requiring just way too much of our techs in the field, taking time away from them with the rental properties saying, we want to know what's going on, but we want you to call the homeowner as well. Well, I'm sorry, but no, this is your job to call the homeowner. You're
Right.
lining up the service with us. So we will correspond with you and then you can relay whatever to the homeowner. If they have any further questions beyond that, they are more than welcome to give us a call when they have time. But, we just don't feel like it's our job to be bending over backwards to contact so many different people in the mix, too many hands in the pot. I will say that the Housecall Pros Facebook group has been amazing for us and has given us so many different insights on how to do things a little better. So the one thing we actually implemented earlier this year was under a service line item was an address line item, which, as I'm sure you know, looking at the software from your phone versus the computer is totally different. When you add that address line item for these rental property companies, for example, that have so many different properties, you can see on your phone as you're scrolling through the history right off the bat, which address. So it's eliminating you trying to go through multiple invoices, trying to go back through the history of one particular property. So to whomever posted that in the Facebook group earlier this year, I just want to say thank you because that has been huge for us and saved us so much time.
Yeah, I love that you bring that up because, obviously Housecall Pro is software and we've got other like solution services, but really the Facebook group is super awesome because there's other folks out there that are using the software day to day and they found other different advanced workflows, other things that they can do to kind of bend and mold the software to work for their particular use cases. I think when you're dealing with like a landlord, a tenant, like property management or rental company, you've got like multiple people on there. I really like how you kind of simplify that. You go, whoever is the one that's coming in with the problem, that's the person that we're going to go communicate with. And then if other people want to down the road ask us more questions, they can, but we can't be keeping 3 different people on the loop, especially when the rental companies premise is you pay them 20% or whatever they are of the revenue to manage your property and handle the communication. So, you definitely should
Absolutely.
be complicating it and doing their job for them.
Absolutely. And I mean, we've had very minimal pushback once we did implement that boundary and kind of that protocol into our business, our daily business operations. But when we did get the pushback, we said exactly like you just said, Roland, you're paying these people for a reason. You're paying them to do this job. So let them do the work.
Right. Totally. That makes a ton of sense. And, you guys have been really long time Housecall Pro users. You've seen it go through all kinds of different changes, additions, and all kinds of improvements. What was the point in time when you guys were like, oh, we need software because you switched from legacy pen and paper, 3 generations, and then something happened, and then you're like, okay, now we got to use it. What was that like moment in time and why did you make that change?
I have to be completely honest. So you're correct. My husband's grandparents did everything on pen and paper. So in 2016, when him and his dad took over, we were using QuickBooks for invoicing and whatnot, but we were still so much smaller than we are now, say 5 or 6 employees. We were operating on a group text. And we thought that was great at the time. Let's fast forward to today. No way in heck would that work for us. And I'm a person that is kind of scared of change sometimes, as I think we all are. So I got to give my mother-in-law credit for that one, again, because, when she and I would take turns answering the phones, somebody happened to reach out and talked her into doing a demo. And she said, I think we should sit down and do this. And I was like, oh, I'm so tired of all these telemarketers. Well, come to find out, you guys obviously aren't a telemarketer. You guys would be our lifeline for the last 5 years. And now I don't know how we ever did life without y'all.
That's really great to hear. Yeah, I mean, we do reach out. We know that pros need to be able to answer their phones. And so oftentimes, finding great customers is just calling them and saying like, hey, do you want to check this thing out? Because we know that it can change the way you run your business. And you can't envision going backwards. What's something, because you've been a long time user, what's something that you're like, all right, if younger Sammy came back into the picture, if you could go into the DeLorean and just like push the time back 5 years ago, like what would current Sammy tell young Sammy 5 years ago that they should do first in Housecall Pro?
First, let's see. Probably at the time, I would have made the very first jump to make sure all of our line items were what we wanted them to be. Because you guys were so wonderful when we signed up with you. We worked with another company. You guys brought someone in from the outside. We negotiated something to get all of our stuff from QuickBooks to transfer so we didn't lose any of those records, which was pertinent for us. But we didn't really have all of our accounting ducks in a row per se. So now that we do, that would have been probably a lot easier. The very first thing that I would have done, which sounds silly, but when you're doing all this reporting and you're responsible for, helping keep the books and everything, it's a big job to take care of. So that is definitely my number one, advice that I think I would give my younger self.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that if you want good data out, you got to have good data in. So if you want to run different reports and different things, if you have something that's structured, if you make sure that you're using tags and make sure that you're using, job types and business units and different types
love
of
a
things.
tag. Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your tagging structure. How do you organize it now?
So anything that, if it requires a follow-up, for example, it's a repair that can't be made that day, we got to order a part or something. What we do and what we've been doing is we use a green tag on the customer profile for open follow-up. So that way we know when they call back, they're waiting on something. Well, I kind of had the revelation last week that how are we going to minimize this and know exactly what they're waiting on? Well, use a job tag as well. So it gets a little repetitive, but now we've started adding open follow-up, a blue tag to the job itself. So we know when they call back exactly what they're waiting on, versus, blindly just going through the history, especially once again for places like these rental property companies. We use tags for jobs and customers for service contract customers. One of the best ways to kind of help us know on the weekends or when we're out of the office, who needs that priority service and who's getting a discounted rate if they have an emergency. And then up until you guys added the do not service feature, which has been wonderful. That's also how we kept track of people that we didn't want to do business with going forward any longer as well.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard, some workflows I've heard of is pros will change the name of the customer and they put emojis in them. So that's one way. The other way used to be, you can add
that's been awesome.
Yeah. Or you can add different tags to it. And now we have, the button that says do not service. So it kind of connects to the entire system. So if someone sees that, then they know what they're getting themselves into if they're dealing with that customer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Angela, my office assistant, she's the biggest Housecall Pro guru. She's the one that, nominated me to be talking with you today. She actually had the idea to add a yellow yield sign emoji to somebody who has given us some problems in the past, but they did end up paying. They've always paid, but we want to literally use caution going forward with them. So that's been helpful as well.
I love it. I see these are the things that I love also in the Facebook group when people share these kind of things. Cause we don't know that people would do that, but people started doing it. They were like, what the heck are they doing that for? And then it made total sense. And they were like, oh, let's build that into the software too. But it's little things like that you can learn if you're part of just the community and talking to other pros and just watching it from time to time to see if, anything jumps out at you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, based on a lot of other people in different trades or similar trades that I've talked to who have considered Housecall Pro and have had doubts about it, I'm I will tell you this, navigating the software on your cell phone or on the app versus on the desktop is completely different, but once you learn these little tricks of the trade and how to make it work for you, it's so worth it. It's just all about kind of learning what works for your company in particular. So you can get the most out of using it, whether you're on the desktop or on the app. So that Facebook group, the emojis, the tags, all those things, the address line item have been huge for maximizing our efficiency when we're not in the office.
For sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. What's like a feature that you love to use, or maybe even that Angela like raves about that you think not a lot of people know enough about or don't realize how valuable it is?
Probably the tagging and those emojis. Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Because once again, the emoji thing is something she learned from the Facebook group as well. And, what I ask of her is just for help, fielding the phone calls after hours and on the weekends so that I'm able to be present as a mom at home with my son and, during those times. So she's working from her phone and her iPad a lot. So her really having the enthusiasm to dive into those things to make her job more efficient and a little easier to navigate, with her not having to be here in the office, because my girl is a beach bum. And I already know if she's not in this office and it's, 75 degrees or higher in the middle of the summer, she's sitting on the beach. So that is, definitely a huge thing. I think for anyone that's like us, that's small, you don't have a lot of, help, and you do have to be a bunch of different places at once. I think that's a great thing for you to work with and take a look at implementing.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously on desktop, there's a much bigger screen and you can fit way more stuff on it. So it's a lot more information dense, I would say. But on the phone, It's a lot more streamlined, but you might not have quite all the different tools at your disposal, but it's plenty enough to, like you said, be able to run the office from your pocket when you're sitting on the beach and you're fielding calls or after hours. You can make quick changes, move stuff around. And that's super cool to be able to be untethered from like a traditional office.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's what I've asked of her from day one. I'm like, I don't care what you do when you're on the clock, as long as the phone calls are handled and everything's kept up with. I don't care where you work. And I'm like, you just tell me what you need to make that happen. And she's done everything plus more than I could have ever imagined. And it's because she's so passionate about this software and has taken so much time to educate herself and to educate me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's almost like a tip within itself is, in your office, in your company, find somebody that wants to kind of take the reins as the person that's out there, like learning and educating the rest of the company and be that kind of go-to source. Because if you have someone like that, it's just invaluable to your entire business. It's like your own blue chat bubble.
Absolutely.
But, in your own office.
Exactly. Yes, sir. You've got it.
Well, Sammy, this has been super insightful. Is there any other things you might want to share with the audience, or any kind of like last minute tips here before we close this up?
If you're new to Housecall Pro and you are on the fence and you've only been using it for a little bit of time, I want to ask you to at least give it 6 months to a year. Because it's probably something new for you like it was for us. But if you put in the time to educate yourself, to utilize all the resources that Housecall provides, which are infinite, and to even just take the time to connect with other pros to see how they're doing things, to see what might work better for you. Just don't give up. Give Housecall Pro a shot. That's all I've got to say, because it has changed our lives dramatically and our efficiency. And I know for a fact, because I've shopped around, that you're not going to find anywhere else for the money or for the resources or for the efficiency.
Well, that's really kind of you to say, Sammy, and I definitely agree. Sometimes change is hard, and giving a little bit of time to marinate, and also investing some of your own time to make sure that it can work for your flows. There's, I don't know, over 55 different verticals, industries that use Housecall Pro. So there's lots of different ways to configure things. And go to the group. If you don't know, I'm sure there's going to be another,
absolutely,
like equestrian masseuse or, HVAC company, whatever kind of, services job that you have that's mobile and out on the road. Well, thank you so much, Sammy, for joining us. There's so many great tips in here. I'm super excited to see all the clips and stuff that come from here for social. And for everyone else listening, tune in for next week for another special guest. Thanks again. See you, everybody.
Thank you.
The Superpro Podcast is brought to you by Housecall Pro, the leading platform for the home service industry. Housecall Pro streamlines your workflows and simplifies everything from scheduling and dispatching to communication and billing. Unlock the full potential of your home service business with Housecall Pro. Work smarter and more efficiently with streamlined workflows and detailed analytics. Win more business and serve your customers well, every single time. Join more than 40,000 home service pros who have already revolutionized their businesses. Work smarter with streamlined workflows, get organized with centralized information, and scale your business your way. Learn more at housecallpro.com.